Combat is an absolute staple of Assassin's Creed Shadows, more so than any other entry in the franchise. With the addition of Yasuke, a dedicated fighter with very few stealth mechanics, combat is much more frequent in Shadows than ever before in Assassin's Creed. Therefore, you are gonna need to know how to fight, especially in the later game, when it becomes increasingly obvious that Naoe is built for stealth and not fighting. And during the sections where you are forced to fight as Naoe, if you don't understand the combat in this game, or you haven't been utilizing the many mechanics available to you, you may start to struggle, especially on the higher difficulties. So I've created this handy quickfire tips video to help you really understand combat gameplay along with all the surrounding mechanics to help you make the most out of both characters and turn them both into an absolutely devastating force to be reckoned with. I'll make sure that most of the tips in this video are applicable to both characters because I am bringing out Naoe and Yasuke specific build guides in the coming days, and these will also include their unique combat and gameplay tips specific to each character. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let's jump into the first tip. First up, my friends, don't spread yourself too thin in the mastery trees. Try to pick one or two weapons that you want to use and specifically focus on them so that you have more points left over to spend in other very important trees such as Samurai for Yasuke and Shinobi for Naoe. For instance, with Yasuke, even though I am nearly fully maxed now with this character, I have purely got points in Long Katana and Samurai, so that I have been able to max out both of these trees, because the more points you put in a single tree, the more that tree's special bonus will multiply and multiply. So as you can see, Yasuke has dramatically increased health percentage and damage with the Long Katana, whereas if I tried to put a few points in all of my trees, my extra bonuses would be very, very weak and I just wouldn't be able to keep up with some of the late game bosses you have to fight. Next up, you want to learn all of the weapons so you know which one most perfectly fits your playstyle. There's another really important reason for this as well, but we'll touch on that in point number 3. To give you an example, without a shadow of a doubt, the Kanabo is definitely the strongest weapon in the game. This thing packs up punch. It is absolutely incredible, but I do not gel with slow weapons in games, so I much prefer the Long Katana or the Naginata. But it's definitely worth learning all of the weapons so that you know this, and you know which ones are going to gel most with your playstyle, because no matter how good a weapon is, if you don't enjoy using it, you're not going to learn it as well, you're not going to have as much fun, and you're not going to play as well. And at the end of the day, fun is the most important thing in video games. And another example is Naoe. I absolutely love her Kusarigama, in particular the posture heavy attack where she swings it around her head and then hits every single enemy in sight. I've got a build dedicated to this one attack, and I just spam this again and again. It triggers the status effect almost every single hit. It just melts things, and it makes Naoe actually be able to hold up against Yasuke in actual combat, which is just awesome. But I'm getting off topic here. I will cover what I'm talking about in depth in Naoe's build guide video. Just know that with the right masteries and the right skills and engravings, every weapon on both characters can become an absolutely devastating force. And this is just yet another reason that you want to learn how to use all of the weapons so that you have every single tool available to you, no matter the situation. And next up, this tip is far more important than both of the first two tips, but they needed to be said to coincide perfectly with what I'm about to tell you here. Remember that respecking your skill tree is free, instant, and can be done anywhere. So now, if you find a new weapon that is significantly better than your current one, say you've been rushing through the game so much that you haven't upgraded it for 5 to 10 levels, but this new weapon you found happens to be a different weapon type, well now, you can respec everything from your katana, for instance, and pump all of your points now into the Kusarigama tree instead. And because you followed tips 1 and 2, you've now got all of these mastery points in the correct area. You've learned how to use the weapon already because you've been practicing with all the weapons. So now you don't need to constantly spend all of your money and upgrade materials trying to keep the one and only weapon category that you can use fully upgraded. Instead, You can switch them around on the fly. You can use this new fancy weapon that you already know how to use and you already have loads of mastery points for. And as an even more added bonus, it's going to save you loads of resources in the long run until you are ready to min-max in the late game and finally level up all of them legendary weapons for free using gold. Next up, do not neglect your tools. And when I use the word tools, I'm not just specifically talking about the tools that Naoe has, like the shuriken and the kunai. I'm talking about anything that isn't just your weapon. Remember, you can blow up exploding barrels with your kunai or with the bow or the rifle with Yasuke. Remember, if you're overwhelmed, that you can always run around the corner to break line of sight and then go and dive in a bush. Always use every tool available to you. Environmental tools, weapons that you often don't use, the different items you have in your inventory that you might not use as often as you should, like the bell or the Teppo rifle. Remember that you have so many ways to tackle every single situation, and try not to get stuck into the habit of doing the same thing again and again, because the more versatile you can be, the easier and the more fun the game will be, because you will be keeping every fight unique and different, and you'll be adding an extra layer of variety and freedom into the game. This next tip is incredibly important for the late game. This is about engravings, and this tip is twofold. Firstly, obviously remember to actually apply your engravings. When you use one, it's not used up, they are infinite, and they only require a tiny amount of mon to use. So feel free to keep switching out the engraving on your favorite weapon again and again as you find more awesome ones, or you decide that your build has changed slightly, and maybe you were focused on vulnerability damage before, whereas now you're focused on bleed damage. So always change your engravings to suit your current build. And the second part of this tip is to go out of your way to find them. They are literally everywhere, and especially you want to focus on shops. Go and check out merchants, go and check out shopkeepers, and see what they have in their inventory frequently. I believe it's the gear merchants that you want to focus on for engravings. They usually have 4 or 5 each. And again, remember, each time you switch characters or each time the season changes, they will replenish their stock, allowing you sometimes to buy even more engravings from the same vendor. There are genuinely hundreds to be had in this game, so every so often, when you think you've just gathered a few more engravings, go back to your hideout, check out what engravings you've got, and swap them out accordingly, depending on what your build is currently focusing on. Next up, talking of engravings, make sure you upgrade your hideout, especially your forge, because with it comes some incredibly powerful benefits that you will literally need for the end game. So when you get your forge, you can now dismantle things and you can level things up to level 20. Level 2 will allow you to get things up to level 40 and apply non-legendary engravings. Then level 3 is level 60 and legendary engravings. Now level 60 you are not going to hit for like probably 70 to 100 hours, but being able to apply legendary engravings this early is really crucial. So I advise getting your forge leveled up ASAP, because you will be getting legendary engravings as long as you're exploring and side content far quicker than you'd think. And on top of that, you want to be placing down every single building you can, leveling up your hideout as quick as you can, because as you can see, as you upgrade your overall hideout level, you unlock a plethora of really powerful upgrades. Especially the final 3, 8, 9, and 10 are absolutely crucial, because they all drastically increase your combat capabilities. Because you're going to be getting free gear from your scouts at the end of each season. It's going to be cheaper to upgrade your gear, and also when you smuggle stockpiles, they will reward crafting materials as well as hideout upgrade materials. This one is huge, because when your gear gets to level 40 and level 50 beyond, it starts to cost thousands to upgrade unless you have a gold, in which case that's a one-time free upgrade. But gold is pretty rare. In 70 hours of playing, I think I've had 5. So yeah, getting your hideout up by placing every single building down and upgrading every single building to max is absolutely huge. The next tip is again somewhat related to your hideout, specifically the dojo. This tip is all about your allies. So if you didn't know, you will unlock various allies throughout the game through doing their respective side quests. And if you are playing on RPG mode rather than canon mode, where the game allows you to make choices, you can fail these ally quests. Well, not fail them, it's your choice at the end of the day, but you are physically able to not recruit your allies. So be very careful with the choices that you decide to pick if you are playing on RPG mode and you are making all of the choices yourself. I say be very careful. I might be being overly dramatic here. I don't want to scare you off. It's very easy to know if you're not going to recruit an ally, but just please, for the love of God, if you see an option to recruit an ally, pick that option. You want all the allies available to you. Some of them are crazy powerful, and then you want to be upgrading your dojo to unlock the maximum amount of potential from your allies, so you can use 2 at a time and you can upgrade them all to max level. For the next tip, we have spoken about your mastery points and making sure you're pumping them into your skills as much as possible a few times throughout this video, because they are perhaps even more important than your gear is. Gear obviously is going to boost your stats, but pumping as many mastery points into the correct skills as possible is going to have huge game-changing effects. And to that end, make sure you are not neglecting side content. Things such as kata trials, shrines, horse archery, all of these activities you see on the map that are like the red-orange symbol, they are all going to grant you a knowledge when you complete them. And when you acquire a certain amount of knowledge, your knowledge rank will increase, and that will then allow you to assign mastery to the next tier of skills in each of your skill trees. So it is very possible, if you are neglecting these, to gain so much mastery and so few knowledge points that you are physically unable to spend your mastery, and you're effectively soft locking your character from improving. So do not skip these activities. Make sure you're increasing your knowledge, or you won't be able to skill your characters, and they will be nowhere near as strong as they should be. This is very important. Next up, another huge mechanic that you cannot be neglecting, especially in the late game, is your adrenaline. Adrenaline are the diamonds above your health, and they indicate when you can use your skills. You want to make sure, no matter what build you are running, that you've got at least a few skills or engravings or something that will increase how quickly you gain adrenaline, because the majority of your late game damage will probably come from your skills. And if you didn't know, what makes this absolutely huge is you are invincible whilst using skills, and some of them last a while and do big AoE damage. So you're literally spinning around doing crazy combos for free whilst being invincible, wrecking your enemies. So the bigger adrenaline gains you can get, and the more frequently you can just be chain spamming skills, the more frequent you're literally going to be invincible and just an absolute god in combat. So I do have a build where I have pretty much infinite adrenaline as Naoe, and I just spam this one Kusarigama skill again and again and again, and it wrecks. It absolutely wrecks. I will cover that in full in her guide. Do not miss that. But yeah, adrenaline is absolutely crucial to late game combat. Obviously, if you're a god gamer and you don't want to use skills, that's a perfectly fine way to play. If you're a parry god, or if you just get very, very familiar with your weapons, that's fine as well. But if you want an easy time of it, adrenaline is the way to go. And finally, my friends, never forget the power of season changes. You want to leverage season changes because they are much more than just cosmetic. There are some very specific things that happen in seasons. Depending on how much or how little sun there is, shadows will become more prominent, and there will be bigger areas of encampments covered in shadow. And this will literally make you more concealed, and there are even engravings and certain weapons that make you do more damage and remove more health states with assassinations whilst you are in a shadow. And that is just one way in which seasons will physically affect how much damage you do and how easy combat is. A few other ways are that in the summer there is more tall grass and there are more shallow ponds. This means even more ambush opportunities, even more places to hide. And in the winter, there's obviously going to be a lot more snow. This will muffle your steps, meaning that especially is now where you can get many more rush assassinations in, because enemies won't hear you coming until you are right up behind them. And this is just a few examples. I could honestly go on for ages about all of the different nuances between all of the different seasons, but they have many genuinely huge impacts on your gameplay and how you should tackle situations depending on what season you're in and what time of the day you're in. So be very, very mindful and conscious of this as you are playing and tackling different areas. That about wraps it up for the beginner guide to all things combat. If you learned at least one thing today, I think that earns a subscription to the channel, and make sure you stay tuned for many more video game guides to come. With that, my friends, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.